John starts telling us he spends a lot of time describing these locusts. So let's see what he says. The appearance of the locusts was like horses prepared for battle, and on their heads appeared to be crowns like gold, and their faces were like human faces, and they had hair like the hair of women, and their teeth were like the teeth of lions. They had breastplates like breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was like the sound of chariots, of many horses rushing to battle. They have tails like scorpions and stings, and in their tail is their power to hurt people for 5 months. And they have as king over them. Okay, let me stop right there. All right. So what is going on here? So remember, the locusts are demons, I believe, and that's the spiritual realm. And in the physical realm, this is the Roman soldiers doing all of this. So we have all heard premillennialist explanations of some of this. You've probably heard, as I have, that these locusts, the descriptions that were given here from John, that he was actually seeing something like futuristic military helicopters, but he didn't recognize what he was seeing. So he uses language, locusts and things, language that he knows, in order to describe these things that he's seeing that would happen in the future, 2,000 years later, after he actually is seeing this vision. Okay, and that is a perfect example of premillennialists taking this spiritual metaphorical language and trying to turn it into something physical. When what it actually means, every single part of this description that John is giving us is symbolic. So he really is seeing this and describing what he's seeing in the spiritual realm, but God is showing him these different parts of it to symbolize things. So let's look at this, okay? So first of all, the locusts were wearing crowns like gold. That simply means they were the victors. They won this war. Their faces were like human faces, okay? So that would be a very direct correlation with admitting the fact that these locusts really are representing the Roman soldiers, okay? And they had hair like the hair of women. Okay, so now I'm very sorry if there are any feminists watching this video, but this was meant to be an insult, okay? So at this time in the culture, women were not allowed inside the temple. And so this would have just added insult to injury, okay? That they were described in any feminine way at all. Their teeth were like the teeth of lions, okay? They were going around and they were slashing people and cutting their throats. So that's obvious. They had breastplates like breastplates of iron. Now, this is a huge clue that these are actually the Roman soldiers. So because iron, usually in the Bible, it is representing the Roman Empire. Remember the statue of Nebuchadnezzar's dream. So the legs of the statue were made out of iron, and that represents the Roman Empire. So this is a huge key clue right here, that this really is talking about the Roman soldiers. And the sound of their wings was like the sound of chariots, of many horses rushing to battle. Okay, so John spends a lot of time, or John mentions the sound. Josephus spends a lot of time talking about the noise of what was happening at this time. So I want to read you some of what he says. While the holy house was on fire, everything was plundered that came to hand, and 10,000 of those were caught were slain. Nor was there a commiseration of any age or any reverence of gravity, but children and old men and profane persons and priests were all slain in the same manner. So that this war went round all sorts of men and brought them to destruction, as well as those that made supplication for their lives, as those that defended themselves fighting. The flame was also carried a long way and made an echo, starting to talk about the sound, together with the groans of those that were slain. And because this hill was high and the works of the temple were very great, one would have thought the whole city had been on fire. Nor can one imagine anything either greater or more terrible than this noise. For there was at once the shout of the Roman legions who were marching together, and the sad clamor of the Jews who were now surrounded with fire and sword. And so they made these sad moans at the calamity. And he says, many of those that were worn away by the famine and their mouths almost closed, when they saw the fire of the holy house, they exerted their utmost strength and break out into groans and outcries. And this echoed throughout the city and off the mountains and augmented the force of the entire noise. Yet was the misery itself more terrible than this disorder. So, and he goes on and he's talking about that the blood was larger in quantity than the fire, and that those that were slain more than the number of those that slew them. For the ground did nowhere appear visible for the dead bodies that lay on it, but the soldiers went over heaps of those bodies as they ran. So that is what is happening. And so we have this noise in both the spiritual realm and in the physical realm. Okay, then it says they have as king over them. Then we have this tails like scorpions and stings, and their tails as their power to hurt people for 5 months. Okay, so we have that number again, 150 days. They have as king over them the angel of the abyss. His name in Hebrew is Abaddon, and that means destruction. His name in Greek is Apollyon, and that means destroyer. The first row is woe has passed. Behold, the two woes are still coming after these things. So I think it's obvious that in the spiritual realm, this Abaddon, Apollyon, that this is Satan, probably Satan himself, otherwise a very, very high level demon. But in the physical realm, it is Titus. Okay.